First contact and misunderstanding. The sleek diplomatic vessel Harmony glided through the swirling nebula of the Zorax home system, its hull gleaming under the light of twin suns. Inside, Dr. Ilara Chen, Earth's foremost xenobiologist, pressed her hand against the viewport, drinking in the sight of the alien world growing larger by the second. After years of preparation and months of interstellar travel, humanity's first diplomatic mission to the Zorax was about to begin. "Nervous, Doc?" Captain Rice asked, joining her at the viewport. Ilara shook her head, her short black hair swaying with the movement. "Excited. We've waited so long for this moment, Captain. The chance to learn from an advanced alien civilization. It's a dream come true." Rice nodded, his weathered face creasing into a smile. "Just remember, we're here as diplomats first. No poking or prodding without permission." "Of course," Ilara replied, though her mind was already racing with the possibilities. The Zorax were a mystery wrapped in an enigma. Initial long-range observations had revealed a technologically advanced species with a unique biology. Their iridescent exoskeletons and multiple limbs hinted at an evolutionary path vastly different from Earth's. As the Harmony settled into its designated landing zone, Ilara felt a flutter of anticipation in her stomach. She straightened her crisp uniform and checked her universal translator one last time. Years of studying alien languages had prepared her for this moment, but nothing could truly ready her for face-to-face contact with an extraterrestrial intelligence. The airlock hissed open, and Ilara stepped out onto the surface of the alien world. The air was thick and humid, carrying unfamiliar scents that made her nose tingle. Before her stood a delegation of Zorax, their exoskeletons shimmering in patterns of blue and green. The tallest among them stepped forward, its four arms moving in a complex gesture. "Greetings, humans," the translator in Ilara's ear buzzed to life. "I am High Counselor Zaxxalian. Welcome to Zoraxia." Ilara bowed deeply, mirroring the gesture she had seen in the cultural briefings. "High Counselor, I am Dr. Ilara Chen, representing Earth and the United Solar Federation. We come in peace and friendship." As the formal greetings were exchanged, Ilara couldn't help but marvel at the Zorax physiology. Their exoskeletons seemed to pulse with an inner light, and their multifaceted eyes reflected the world in kaleidoscopic patterns. She longed to ask 1,000 questions, to delve into the intricacies of their biology and evolution. The diplomatic party was escorted to a grand hall, its architecture a stunning blend of organic shapes and crystalline structures. As they walked, Ilara noticed something odd about the Zorax movements. There was a subtle sluggishness, a hesitation in their steps that seemed at odds with their advanced technology. During the formal reception, Ilara found herself seated next to a Zorax scientist named Vexera. Unable to contain her curiosity any longer, she leaned in close. "Vexera, I hope you don't mind me asking, but I've noticed something about your people's movements. Is there a cultural significance to the deliberate pace?" The Zorax scientist's exoskeleton flickered with patterns of surprise. "You are observant, Dr. Chen. It is not cultural, but a matter we prefer not to discuss with outsiders." Ilara's scientific curiosity overrode her diplomatic caution. "Is it a medical issue? Perhaps we could help. Human medical science has made great strides in treating a wide variety of conditions." Vexera's reply was cut short by a commotion at the head of the table. High Counselor Zaxxalian had risen, its exoskeleton pulsing with angry red patterns. The universal translator struggled to keep up with the rapid-fire alien language, but the meaning was clear: outrage. "You dare!" Zaxxalian's translated voice boomed across the hall. "We invite you to our world in good faith, and you seek to exploit our weaknesses." Ilara stood, confusion and alarm morning on her face. "High Counselor, there's been a misunderstanding. I meant no offense." But her words were drowned out by the growing clamor of angry Zorax voices. Captain Rice was suddenly at her side, his hand on her arm. "We need to leave now," he hissed. As they were hurriedly escorted back to the Harmony, Ilara's mind raced. How had her innocent question caused such an uproar? What secret were the Zoracs hiding? And how could she salvage this diplomatic disaster before it spiraled into an interstellar incident? The airlock of the Harmony sealed behind them with a final hiss, cutting off the angry buzzing of the Zoracs crowd outside. Ilara leaned against the cool metal wall, her heart pounding. She had come to this alien world with dreams of scientific discovery and cultural exchange. Now those dreams lay shattered at her feet, replaced by the very real possibility of a diplomatic crisis that could end human-Zoracs relations before they truly began. Captain Rice's voice cut through her thoughts, sharp with controlled anger. "What the hell happened out there, Dr. Chen? You were supposed to be our expert on alien cultures." Ilara straightened, meeting the captain's gaze. I don't know, Captain. I simply asked about an observed physical characteristic. There must be something we're missing, some cultural taboo we weren't briefed on." "Well, whatever it is, we need to fix it fast," Rise replied, running a hand through his close-cropped hair. "The Zoracs are demanding we leave their system immediately. If we can't smooth this over, years of preparation and billions in resources will have been wasted." As the gravity of the situation settled over her, Ilara felt a familiar determination rise within her. She hadn't spent her entire career studying alien life forms to give up at the first sign of trouble. There had to be a way to salvage this situation, to turn this misunderstanding into an opportunity for greater understanding. "Captain," she said, her voice steadying, "give me a chance to make this right. Let me reach out to Vexera, the scientist I was speaking with. If I can understand what went wrong, maybe I can find a way to apologize and rebuild trust." Ray studied her for a long moment, then nodded curtly. "You've got 24 hours, Doctor. After that, if the Zoracs still want us gone, we'll have no choice but to comply. The last thing Earth needs is an interstellar incident on our first official contact." Ilara nodded, her mind already racing with possibilities. As she made her way to her quarters to compose a message to Vexera, she couldn't shake the feeling that there was more to this situation than a simple cultural misunderstanding. The Zoracs' reaction had been too extreme, too defensive. What were they hiding? And more importantly, how could humanity help? As the Harmony hung in orbit around Zoraxia, Ilara stared out at the alien world below. Somewhere down there were answers, and she was determined to find them, for the sake of both their species. Unraveling the mystery, Dr. Ilara Chen paced the confines of her quarters aboard the Harmony, her eyes flicking between the holographic display of Zoraxia rotating slowly before her and the blinking cursor on her communication terminal. She had spent hours crafting and recrafting her message to Vexera, trying to strike the perfect balance between scientific inquiry and diplomatic sensitivity. With a deep breath, she hit send and waited. The response came faster than she expected, a quiet chime that sent her heart racing. Vexera's message was brief, but it sent a surge of hope through Ilara. "Dr. Chen, meet me at the following coordinates. Come alone. There is much you need to understand." Ilara's mind raced with possibilities as she approached Captain Rice with the news. The captain's face was a mask of concern as he listened to her plan. "It's too risky, Doctor," Rice said, shaking his head. "We can't send you down there alone. Not after what happened." Ilara leaned forward, her dark eyes intense. "Captain, this might be our only chance to salvage this mission. Vexera is taking a huge risk reaching out to me. If we don't reciprocate that trust, we might lose this opportunity forever." After a tense moment, Rice nodded reluctantly. "Fine, but you'll wear a biomonitor and keep an open comm link at all times. At the first sign of trouble, we're pulling you out." As the shuttle descended through Zoraxia's atmosphere, Ilara's mind whirled with theories and questions. The coordinates Vexera had provided led to a remote area, far from the gleaming cities they had seen during their initial approach. The shuttle touched down in a small clearing surrounded by towering alien vegetation. As Ilara stepped out, the humid air hit her like a wall, thick with unfamiliar scents. She scanned the area, her hand instinctively checking her translator and biomonitor. A rustling in the undergrowth made her spin around. Vexera emerged, its exoskeleton muted to camouflage with the surroundings. "Thank you for coming, Dr. Chen." Vexera's translated voice was tinged with what Ilara interpreted as anxiety. "What I am about to show you must remain between us. The future of our people may depend on it." Ilara nodded solemnly. "You have my word, Vexera. Whatever you show me will be held in the strictest confidence." The Zorak scientist led Ilara through the dense foliage, moving with the same sluggishness she had noticed before. After several minutes of difficult terrain, they emerged into another clearing. Ilara gasped at the sight before her. A makeshift medical facility had been set up, filled with Zoraks of all ages. Many lay on beds, their exoskeletons pulsing weakly with dull colors. Others moved about slowly, tending to the sick with evident difficulty. What is this place?" Ilara asked, her scientific mind already cataloging symptoms and possible causes. Vexera's exoskeleton rippled with patterns of sadness and fear. "This is the truth we hide from the galaxy, Dr. Chen. Our people are dying." Over the next hour, Vexera explained the dire situation facing the Zoraks. A virus, previously unknown and highly adaptive, had begun spreading through their population several years ago. It attacked the complex bioelectric systems that regulated their exoskeletons, leading to progressive weakness, loss of color modulation, and eventually, total system failure. "Our best scientists have been working around the clock," Vexera said, leading Ilara through the facility. "But the virus adapts faster than we can develop treatments. We estimate that within a decade, our entire species could be wiped out." Ilara's mind raced with the implications, but why keep this a secret? Surely reaching out for help would be better than facing extinction. Vexera's exoskeleton flickered with complex patterns. Pride. Fear. Our leaders believed that showing weakness would invite exploitation from other species, and after centuries of isolation, many fear that the cure could be worse than the disease. As they talked, Ilara's scientific curiosity began to override her shock. She asked dozens of questions, her mind already formulating hypotheses and potential avenues of research. The similarities between the Zorax virus and certain terrestrial retroviruses were striking, and she found herself growing excited at the possibilities. "Vexera," she said, her eyes shining with determination. "I think human medical science might be able to help. We've made significant advances in viral therapies and genetic treatments. If we could combine our knowledge with yours, we might be able to find a solution." The Zorax scientist's exoskeleton pulsed with a complex mix of hope and hesitation. But the High Council, they would never agree to outside intervention, especially not after the diplomatic incident. Ilara smiled, a plan already forming in her mind. "Then we don't ask for permission. We prove it's possible first." As they made their way back to the shuttle, Ilara's mind was ablaze with ideas. She knew she was walking a dangerous line between scientific breakthrough and diplomatic disaster, but the potential reward was too great to ignore. If they could save an entire species from extinction, surely that would be worth the risk. Back on the Harmony, Ilara threw herself into her work. She coordinated with Vexera via secure channels, exchanging data and theories at a frantic pace. The ship's advanced laboratories became her second home as she worked tirelessly to understand the intricacies of Zorax biology and the virus that threatened to destroy it. Days blurred into weeks as Ilara pushed herself to the limit. Captain Rice grew increasingly concerned, but even he couldn't deny the importance of her work. The rest of the crew whispered and speculated, but Ilara remained tight-lipped, honoring her promise to Vexera. Finally, after countless simulations and experiments, a breakthrough emerged. Ilara stared at the holographic model floating before her, hardly daring to believe what she was seeing. A combination of human retroviral therapies and Zorax bioelectric manipulation techniques showed promising results in computer models. With trembling hands, she composed a message to Vexera. "I think we found something. We need to meet." As she waited for a response, Ilara allowed herself a moment of hope. They were still a long way from a cure, but for the first time since learning of the Zorax's plight, she felt they had a fighting chance. But even as she celebrated this small victory, a part of her knew that the hardest part was yet to come. How could they convince the proud and secretive Zorax leadership to accept help from the very species they had so recently rejected? As if in answer to her unspoken question, an alert flashed on her screen. An incoming transmission from the planet's surface. Ilara's heart raced as she accepted the call, Vexera's familiar form shimmering into view. "Dr. Chen." The Zorax scientist's voice was urgent, its exoskeleton pulsing with agitation. "We may have run out of time. The High Council has learned of our collaboration. They're demanding your immediate departure from our system." Ilara felt the weight of two civilizations' futures settling on her shoulders. In that moment, she knew that the next few hours would determine not just the fate of the Zorax, but the course of human-alien relations for generations to come. With a deep breath, she straightened her back and met Vexera's gaze. "Then we'll just have to change their minds. Fast. Race against time." The Harmony's conference room crackled with tension as Dr. Ilara Chen laid out the situation to Captain Rice and the senior staff. The holographic display pulsed with images of Zorax biology and virus simulations, casting an eerie glow over the assembled faces. "So let me get this straight," Rice said, his voice tight with controlled anger. "You've been conducting secret research with an alien scientist in direct violation of diplomatic protocols, and now the Zorax government wants us out of their system." Ilara met his gaze unflinchingly. "Yes, Captain. But we're on the verge of a breakthrough that could save their entire species. We can't leave now." The ship's political officer, a sharp-faced woman named Lydia Kovacs, leaned forward. "Dr. Chen, do you realize the diplomatic nightmare you've created? This could set human-alien relations back decades, or it could propel them forward centuries," Ilara countered. "Think about it. If we can save the Zorax from extinction, we'll prove that humanity is a species worth allying with." A tense silence fell over the room as the implications sank in. It was Reyes who finally broke it, his weathered face set in grim determination. "All right, Doctor. You've got 48 hours to make this work. After that, we follow orders and leave the system." "Understood." Ilara nodded, relief and determination warring within her. "Thank you, Captain. I won't let you down." As the meeting dispersed, Ilara's mind was already racing with plans. She needed to get planetside, to work directly with Vexera and the infected Zorax. But how to do it without triggering an interplanetary incident? The answer came from an unexpected source. Lieutenant Commander Zhen, the ship's normally quiet chief engineer, approached her with a glint in his eye. "Dr. Chen, I couldn't help overhearing. I think I might have a solution to your problem." Hours later, Ilara found herself in a modified shuttle, its hull reconfigured to mask its human origins. Zhen's ingenious cloaking technology would allow her to slip past Zorax defenses undetected. As the shuttle descended through the alien atmosphere, Ilara's heart raced with a mixture of excitement and fear. She was risking everything, her career, potentially even peace between their species, on this gamble. But the faces of the suffering Zorax she had seen in Vexera's secret facility steeled her resolve. The shuttle touched down in a secluded area near the makeshift hospital. Vexera was waiting, its exoskeleton pulsing with anxious patterns. "Dr. Chen, I cannot express how grateful I am for your return, but I fear we may be too late. The virus has mutated again, and our most severe cases are deteriorating rapidly." Ilara's jaw set with determination as she unloaded her equipment. "Then we'll just have to work faster. Show me to your lab." The next hours were a blur of frantic activity. Ilara worked side by side with Vexera and a small team of trusted Zorax scientists, their different physiologies creating a strange dance around the cramped laboratory space. They pored over data, ran simulations, and synthesized potential treatments at a breakneck pace. As the first of Zoraxia's twin suns began to set, casting an orange glow through the lab's windows, Ilara felt a surge of excitement. "Vexera, look at this," she called out, pointing to a holographic model. "If we combine the retroviral therapy with a targeted electromagnetic pulse tuned to Zorax bioelectric frequencies, we might be able to disrupt the virus's replication cycle." The Zorax scientist's exoskeleton lit up with hopeful patterns. Yes, I see it, but the calibration would have to be incredibly precise. One miscalculation could overload our neural pathways. Ilara nodded grimly. "It's risky, but it might be our best shot. We need to run a live trial." Just then, an alarm blared through the facility. Vexera's assistant burst into the lab, its exoskeleton flashing with panic. "The High Council's security forces are on their way. They've discovered our location." Ilara's mind raced. They were so close to a breakthrough, but without more time to test and refine the treatment. Using it could be as dangerous as the virus itself. Vexera turned to her, its multifaceted eyes reflecting the lab's pulsing emergency lights. "Dr. Chen, you must go. If you're caught here, it could mean war between our peoples." But Ilara stood her ground, an idea forming. "No, I'm not leaving. In fact, I'm going to turn myself in." Before Vexera could protest, Ilara was striding out of the lab towards the approaching sound of Zorax security vehicles. As she emerged from the facility, she raised her hands in a universal gesture of surrender. The Zorax security forces surrounded her, their weapons trained on her human form. In flawless Zorax, thanks to her translator, Ilara addressed them. "My name is Dr. Ilara Chen of Earth. I demand to speak to the High Council immediately. The fate of your species depends on it." As she was led away, Ilara caught a glimpse of Vexera watching from the shadows, its exoskeleton pulsing with a mix of fear and hope. Everything now hinged on her ability to convince the Zorax leadership that human intervention was not a threat, but their only chance for survival. The journey to the Zorax capital was tense, with Ilara's mind working overtime to prepare her arguments. She knew she was walking into a hostile environment, facing a species that prided itself on self-reliance and viewed outside help as a sign of weakness. As the transport vehicle crested a hill, the Zorax capital came into view. It was a breathtaking sight. A sprawling metropolis of crystalline spires and bioorganic architecture that seemed to pulse with its own life. Under different circumstances, Ilara would have been enthralled by the scientific and cultural marvels surrounding her. Now she saw only a civilization on the brink of collapse, its glittering facades hiding a dying populace. The vehicle came to a stop before an imposing structure that Ilara assumed was the seat of the High Council. As she was led inside, flanked by guards, she couldn't help but marvel at the intricate bioluminescent patterns that flowed through the walls, a visual representation of the very bioelectric systems that the virus was destroying. The council chamber was a vast, circular room. Tiered seating rose on all sides, filled with Zorax dignitaries whose exoskeletons flickered with a rainbow of emotions: curiosity, anger, fear. At the center, on an elevated platform, sat the High Council itself. High Councilor Zaxalian's voice boomed across the chamber as Ilara was brought before them. "Dr. Ilara Chen of Earth, you stand accused of violating our sovereign territory, conducting unauthorized research on our people, and conspiring against the Zorax government. How do you plead?" Ilara took a deep breath, straightening to her full height. This was it, the moment that would determine the fate of two species. "High Councilor, esteemed members of the Council," she began, her voice steady despite the gravity of the situation. "I plead guilty to all charges, but I did so with the noblest of intentions, to save your species from extinction." A murmur rippled through the chamber. Zaxalian's exoskeleton pulsed with angry red patterns. "Extinction? What nonsense is this? We are the Zorax. Masters of bioelectric technology, pioneers of faster-than-light travel. We do not need saving, least of all by primitives, such as yourself. Ilara's next words cut through the chamber like a knife. Then why are your people dying in secret, High Counselor? Why are your hospitals overflowing with victims of a virus you can't control? The silence that followed was deafening. Ilara pressed on, her voice rising with passion. I've seen the truth you've been hiding from your own people. I've worked with your scientists, studied your biology. The virus that's ravaging your population is unlike anything you've encountered before, but it's not unlike things we've faced on Earth. She gestured to the holographic projector she'd been allowed to bring. With a few quick commands, she brought up models of the Zorax virus alongside similar terrestrial pathogens. Your isolation has been your strength, but now it's becoming your weakness. You've evolved in ways we couldn't imagine, but so have your diseases. Sometimes, the key to solving a problem comes from an outside perspective. As Ilara launched into a detailed explanation of the treatment they'd developed, she could see the patterns on the council members' exoskeletons shifting. Anger gave way to curiosity, then to a grudging interest. But it was the arrival of Vexara, bursting into the chamber with news of successful preliminary trials, that finally tipped the scales. As the council deliberated, Ilara felt the weight of two civilizations resting on her shoulders. She had done all she could. Now, it was up to the Zorax to decide their own fate and the future of human-alien relations. The chamber fell silent as High Counselor Zaxalian rose to deliver the verdict. Ilara held her breath, acutely aware that the next word she heard could change the course of galactic history. The human touch. High Counselor Zaxalian's voice resonated through the chamber, each word carrying the weight of centuries of Zorax tradition and pride. Dr. Ilara Chen of Earth, your actions have been unorthodox. You have violated our laws, our sovereignty, and our trust. Ilara's heart sank, but she kept her gaze steady, refusing to show weakness. Zaxalian continued, his exoskeleton pulsing with complex patterns. And yet, in doing so, you may have offered us a chance at survival we had thought lost. The Council has decided to provisionally accept your assistance. A collective gasp rippled through the chamber. Ilara felt a surge of relief and excitement, but she knew the real challenge was just beginning. However, Zaxalian added, his tone sharpening, we cannot simply take your word on the safety and efficacy of this treatment. If you truly believe in it, you will demonstrate its harmlessness on yourself first. Ilara's mind raced. The treatment had been designed for Zorax physiology. Using it on a human could have unpredictable, potentially dangerous effects. But as she looked around the chamber, seeing the fear and hope warring in the complex patterns of the Zorax exoskeletons, she knew what she had to do. I accept your terms, High Counselor, Ilara said, her voice unwavering. I will undergo the treatment myself. The next few hours were a whirlwind of activity. Ilara worked closely with Vexara and a team of Zorax scientists to modify the treatment for human physiology. The risks were enormous. The electromagnetic pulse could potentially disrupt her nervous system, and the retroviral therapy could have unforeseen effects on her human DNA. As Ilara lay on the medical bed, electrodes attached to her temples and an IV drip in her arm, she caught sight of her reflection in a nearby monitor. She looked pale and small against the alien technology surrounding her, but her eyes burned with determination. Vexara approached, its exoskeleton flickering with concern. Dr. Chen, Ilara, are you certain about this? The risk to you is significant. Ilara managed a small smile. Sometimes, Vexara, you have to take a leap of faith, for science, for understanding, for the future. With a nod to the Zorax medical team, Ilara closed her eyes as the treatment began. A tingling sensation spread through her body, quickly intensifying to a burning that seemed to reach into every cell. Her muscles spasmed, and her vision exploded with kaleidoscopic patterns. Through the haze of pain and disorientation, Ilara forced herself to remain conscious, cataloging every sensation and reaction. This was more than a demonstration. It was a unique opportunity to experience Zorac's medical technology firsthand. As the treatment progressed, Ilara became aware of something extraordinary. The burning sensation had given way to a feeling of heightened awareness. She could sense the bioelectric fields generated by the Zoracs around her, perceiving their emotional states through the subtle fluctuations in their exoskeleton's patterns. When the procedure finally ended, Ilara sat up slowly, blinking as her vision cleared. The room fell silent as both humans and Zoracs waited to see the results. I feel incredible," Ilara said, her voice filled with wonder. She held up her hand, watching in amazement as faint patterns of light danced across her skin. "I think the treatment may have activated some latent bioelectric potential in human physiology." The Zorac scientists erupted in excited chittering, their exoskeletons flashing with patterns of amazement and triumph. Even High Counselor Zaxelian seemed impressed, the harsh lines of his exoskeleton softening slightly. "It appears, Dr. Chen," Zaxelian said, "that your species is more adaptable than we had believed. Perhaps there is more we can learn from each other than we realized." Over the next few days, Ilara worked tirelessly alongside the Zorac's medical teams to administer the treatment to infected individuals. The results were nothing short of miraculous. Zoracs who had been on the brink of total system failure began to show signs of recovery, their exoskeletons regaining their vibrant colors and patterns. As news of the treatment's success spread, the mood on Zoraxia began to shift. The initial hostility towards the human presence gave way to cautious optimism, then to outright gratitude. Ilara found herself being stopped in the streets by Zorac citizens, their exoskeletons pulsing with patterns she now recognized as thanks and respect. But it wasn't just the Zoracs who were changing. Ilara's experience with the treatment had opened up new avenues of research and understanding. The activation of bioelectric potential in humans hinted at possibilities that could revolutionize medicine, communication, and even human evolution itself. As the immediate crisis began to subside, Ilara knew that her work was far from over. The treatment had bought time, but there was still much to be done to ensure the long-term survival of the Zorac species and to explore the new frontier of human Zorac biology. One evening, as Zoraxia's twin suns set in a spectacular display of color, Ilara stood on a balcony overlooking the capital city with Vexera at her side. The Zorac scientist's exoskeleton pulsed with patterns that Ilara now recognized as contentment and friendship. "You have given us more than just a cure, Ilara," Vexera said softly. "You've given us a future. And perhaps a new understanding of our place in the universe." Ilara smiled, watching the faint bioelectric patterns play across her own skin. "We've given each other that gift, Vexera. This is just the beginning of what our species can achieve together." As they stood there, human and Zorac side by side, Ilara felt a profound sense of hope for the future. The road ahead would not be easy. There were still cultural barriers to overcome, scientific mysteries to unravel, and untold challenges waiting in the vastness of space. But for the first time, they would face those challenges together. The human element had proven to be the catalyst for change, the bridge between two vastly different species. And in that moment, as the stars began to appear in the alien sky, Ilara knew that the true adventure was just beginning. A chime from her communicator interrupted her reverie. It was a message from Captain Rice aboard the Harmony. "Dr. Chen, we've just received a transmission from Earth. The United Solar Federation is, well, you'd better see this for yourself." Ilara's heart raced as she hurried to the communication center, Vexera close behind. As the holographic display flickered to life, she found herself face to face with the Federation Council itself. The stern faces of Earth's leaders filled the screen, their expressions unreadable. "Dr. Ilara Chen," the council president began, her voice formal. "We have received the full report of your actions on Zoraxia. Your violation of diplomatic protocols and engagement in unauthorized research are severe breaches of Federation law." Ilara felt her stomach drop. After everything she had accomplished, would it all end in disgrace and punishment? But then the president's expression softened, ever so slightly. However, in light of the extraordinary circumstances and the potential benefits to both humanity and the Zorax, the Council has decided to officially sanction your mission. Furthermore, we are extending an invitation to the Zorax High Council to join us in establishing a joint scientific and cultural exchange program. The communication center erupted in cheers. Ilara felt tears of relief and joy welling up in her eyes as she turned to Vexera, whose exoskeleton was practically glowing with excitement. As the celebration continued around them, Ilara's mind was already racing with the possibilities that lay ahead. The bridge between their species had been built. Now, it was time to see just how far they could go together. A new era of cooperation. 5 years had passed since the fateful day when Dr. Ilara Chen had first set foot on Zoraxia. As she stood on the observation deck of the newly christened Harmony Station, a joint human-Zorax space habitat orbiting the alien world, she marveled at how much had changed. The station itself was a testament to the unprecedented cooperation between the two species. Its design was a harmonious blend of human ingenuity and Zorax bioelectric technology, creating a living, breathing structure that pulsed with the combined life force of its inhabitants. Ilara's reflection in the transparent aluminum viewport caught her eye. The faint bioelectric patterns that now danced across her skin were a constant reminder of the profound changes she had undergone. The treatment that had saved the Zorax had also unlocked hidden potential in human physiology, leading to a new era of human enhancement and medical breakthroughs. A familiar chittering sound made her turn. Vexera approached, its exoskeleton shimmering with patterns of excitement and friendship. "Lost in thought again, Ilara?" the Zorax scientist asked, its translator now so finely tuned to her brainwaves that it felt like true telepathic communication. Ilara smiled. "Just reflecting on how far we've come, old friend. Sometimes I can hardly believe it's real." Vexera's exoskeleton pulsed with agreement. "Indeed, the Galactic Scientific Summit begins tomorrow. Who would have thought, 5 years ago, that we would be hosting representatives from a dozen different species to share knowledge and build alliances?" The mention of the summit sent a thrill of excitement through Ilara. The event was the culmination of years of work, a platform for sharing the incredible advances that had stemmed from human-Zorax cooperation. From revolutionary medical treatments to new forms of faster-than-light travel, the partnership between their species had accelerated scientific progress beyond anyone's wildest dreams. But it hadn't all been smooth sailing. There had been setbacks and challenges along the way. Cultural misunderstandings still occurred, and there were those on both sides who viewed the rapid changes with suspicion and fear. Ilara and Vexera had worked tirelessly as ambassadors, bridging the gap between their peoples and paving the way for greater understanding. As they made their way through the station towards the main conference hall, Ilara and Vexera passed humans and Zorax working side by side. The sight never failed to fill Ilara with a sense of pride and hope for the future. The conference hall was a marvel of engineering, capable of accommodating the diverse physiological needs of multiple alien species. As delegates began to arrive, the air buzzed with a cacophony of languages and the hum of various atmospheric bubbles. Ilara took her place at the podium, Vexera by her side. As she looked out over the assembled representatives of a dozen worlds, she felt the weight of the moment settle upon her. "Distinguished delegates," she began, her voice carrying clearly through the advanced translation systems. 5 years ago, a misunderstanding nearly ended in tragedy. Today, we stand united, not just as humans and Zorax, but as members of a galactic community. As Ilara spoke, holographic displays came to life around the hall, showcasing the incredible achievements of the past 5 years. Images of healed Zorax, their exoskeletons vibrant and healthy, floated alongside displays of advanced human bioenhancements. Schematics of new starship designs, powered by a fusion of human and Zorax technology, rotated slowly in the air. The key to our success, Ilara continued, was not just in our scientific achievements, but in our willingness to reach across the gulf of our differences, to see not alien threats, but potential friends and allies. Vexera stepped forward, its exoskeleton pulsing with patterns that the assembled delegates' translation systems interpreted as enthusiasm and hope. What we have achieved together, the Zorax scientist added, is only the beginning. Imagine what we could accomplish if we all pooled our knowledge, our unique perspectives, our diverse approaches to the universe's greatest mysteries. As the presentation continued, Ilara could see the impact their words were having. Representatives from worlds that had long viewed each other with suspicion were beginning to engage in excited discussions. Ideas were flowing freely, uninhibited by old prejudices and fears. Suddenly, an alarm blared through the station. Ilara's heart raced as she saw the fear and confusion spreading through the assembled delegates. Captain Raya's voice came over the comm system, tight with tension. "Dr. Chen, we're picking up an unknown object approaching at incredible speed. It's like nothing we've ever seen before." For a moment, panic threatened to overtake the conference hall. But then, Ilara saw something remarkable begin to unfold. Humans, Zorax, and representatives from a dozen other worlds began to come together, offering their unique knowledge and capabilities to address the potential threat. A Volcran physicist suggested a way to enhance the station's sensors. A Threllan strategist proposed defensive measures that incorporated the strengths of multiple species technologies. Humans and Zorax worked in perfect synchronization, their complementary abilities allowing for rapid implementation of these ideas. As the unknown object drew nearer, the combined efforts of the galactic delegates paid off. Enhanced scans revealed not a threat, but a probe of incredible complexity, its design suggesting an origin far beyond known space. The realization sent a wave of excitement through the station. This was not a moment of danger, but of unprecedented opportunity. First contact with a new, highly advanced civilization. As the assembled species worked together to decipher the probe's message and prepare a response, Ilara felt a profound sense of awe and hope. This, she realized, was the true power of cooperation, of seeing beyond differences to the shared spirit of curiosity and exploration that united all sentient beings. Months later, as the Harmony Station prepared to launch a joint mission to make first contact with the probe's creators, Ilara stood once again at the observation deck. The station now bustled with activity, representatives from dozens of worlds working together in harmony. Vexera joined her, its exoskeleton pulsing with a pattern that Ilara had come to recognize as contentment. "Do you ever wonder," the Zorax scientist asked, "what might have happened if you hadn't taken that risk 5 years ago? If you hadn't reached out across the divide between our species?" Ilara smiled, watching the stars beyond the viewport. Each point of light now held the promise of new discoveries, new friendships, new possibilities. "I try not to dwell on what might have been," she replied. "I prefer to focus on what's ahead. We've only just begun to scratch the surface of what we can achieve together." As they stood there, human and Zorax side by side, Ilara felt a profound sense of gratitude for the journey that had brought them to this point. The human element, curiosity, compassion, and the drive to connect across boundaries, had been the catalyst for change. But it was the combined strength of multiple species working in harmony that would propel them into a future brighter than any of them could have imagined alone. The stars beckoned, and together, they would answer the call.